Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the innovators and leaders of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Grow With Us podcast highlights in-Tulsa talent's work of bridging Tulsa talent with tech opportunities and the revolutionary work around the city. In-Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. On this episode of Grow With Us, we are in conversation with Brooke Randels, the Program Director of Campus Tulsa. We discuss the importance of access, opportunity, and exposure to college internships, the mission of Campus Tulsa, and exciting corporate and community partnerships like the NU College Track program. Brooke, it's so great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit about Campus Tulsa.
Yes, this is going to be great. I want to just jump in with what our relationship is like right now, which is great because Brooke, I met you we're almost at 2.5 months or so, and it feels like a lifetime. No.
I know. It's the Greensboro, North Carolina that just
Exactly.
brought us,
The immediate bonding. I would love to reflect on that trip a little bit on this podcast if we can. I think it was a really great trip, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, well, one, I posted this on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get more savvy, but I think it's really special when you get to hang out with the people you work with, where it's we were doing a work thing, we're at a conference, but then we get to know each other in another city.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to deflect on except for we're getting to know each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that just for a little bit of context to listeners, we went to this conference called Young Smart Local. It was hosted in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was honestly really interesting to see and hear about other cities that were doing economic development work for their regions. One of my favorite things that happened was when we were walking, I think we were walking to one of the happy hours or just in downtown Greensboro. And the Campus Philly team saw us and they were like, Tulsa, woo, woo. And I was like, why are we getting catcalled in Greensboro?
Who knows we're from Tulsa?
We're all wearing Tulsa merch. Brooke's wearing a Tulsa sweater right now. How are we from Tulsa?
Oh wait, we know them. Yeah. Philly.
It was honestly a really good time. I'm glad that the group that we had was good. And anyways, it kind of just brought us together. So Brooke, I'm really glad to have you on the podcast because from that experience, got to know a little bit more about you. And our Grow With Us listeners are going to learn a little bit more about you now as you tell your story. So do you mind telling your story in whatever way you feel comfortable?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting when I tell my story now and the lens that I've developed with Campus Tulsa because I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary in Tulsa.
Yay.
So 2023, I'll have been living in Tulsa for 10 years, which is wild. It's the longest place I've lived anywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's kind of
feels
fun.
special.
Yeah, it does feel special. I came to Tulsa to go to the University of Tulsa, which is why I'm wearing Tulsa gear today. It's homecoming for TU this weekend.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun.
Yeah. But I moved here. I grew up, honestly, in very small and rural towns. My family's home base is a very, very small town in Kansas. I'm not even going to put names because no one's going to know where it is. And so I grew up in really small towns and I got to Tulsa to go to the University of Tulsa. In fact, the towns I grew up in are so small, there's no city lights. So I remember my first night in Tulsa, I was like, where are the stars?
Or you're like, when will they turn these off?
I know. I'm does it ever? And then when the lights went off, I was like, I still can't see the stars. I remember being a little shocked. And there was a girl, she was from Tulsa. She lived next to me. She's like, Brooke, this is what it's like. And I'm like, okay. I just needed someone to say that,
City girl.
And now it's funny because I'm a city girl all the way. Yeah. Country girl. I don't know if I was ever really a country girl, but for sure country girl no more. So I came to Tulsa to go to school at the University of Tulsa. And honestly, that just, I think, really changed my trajectory in a lot of ways. Being from a small town, I just think that there's not as much opportunity or access to just what people do in the world or what's going on in the world. And so I just really didn't have any idea. And I came to TU as this sweet, small town, naive person I didn't really know anything. I picked being an education major because I was like, well, that's what girls do, right? We become teachers or nurses, and I'm not going to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I guess I'll teach. And then I got in there. I was like, I'm not going to teach. This is not for me.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just an important side note, but teaching in Oklahoma is just not the most lucrative career, and I will leave it at that for now.
Yeah, we could leave it there. I'll touch on it maybe in a second.
Yeah.
But all to say is I found an amazing community at TU. Like the people I became friends with at TU made Tulsa a home for me. And I think you can even ask the people who knew me prior to coming to the University of Tulsa, is like, it was clear that there was a difference, like in me and feeling at home and really having great relationships. And I think that was just what kept me in Tulsa to start, right?
Yeah.
And so then I graduate from TU, and I think this is important when we talk about Campus Tulsa. I had 4 internships when I was at TU.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a lot of exposure to Tulsa and its community through those internships. And then I graduated. I went through every college graduate's identity crisis. Like, oh my God.
Grad school now, grad school later, work now, work later.
Yeah, who am I? Like, all these people aren't around me anymore. I don't go to class. Whatever.
I don't have homework. I had that crisis. Not crisis. I had that blissful recognition last night. I was like, I'm so glad I don't have homework.
Right. It's like all these like little nuggets that you're like, this is amazing. And then it's like, oh my God, I have to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't even know who any of these people are. Yeah. Like, I don't live with my friends anymore. It's just a weird experience. Yeah. And so I was going through this thing. I got hired by the University of Tulsa immediately upon my graduation. I started doing marketing and communications for their Office of Admission, and jumped into what does it look like to recruit students to come to Tulsa to go to TU through social media, digital campaigns, email campaigns, like all these things, right? I don't even know how to do it anymore. So, but I did it for a little while there. And I don't know that admissions ever had my heart, and everyone in that admissions office always knew, but I loved people, and I was starting to really love Tulsa without TU. Like, TU was obviously still in my life, but I was being able to experience it in this other way now because I was like going out into Tulsa. So I asked them like, hey, can we make some community outreach here? They're like, yeah. So we started doing community outreach program. Primarily was in like Tulsa Public Schools, did some work with Jinx Public Schools, Broken Arrow Public Schools, and just started learning like, where is the Tulsa community really at in terms of education and students' ability to go to college, right? Because as we'll talk about with Campus Tulsa, going to college is a big piece in taking some of these really like good paying jobs. It's a piece of being a community leader. There's not a lot of people without college degrees who feel empowered to be civically engaged, right? Yeah. So there's all these things. So I'm just really interested within the communities of Tulsa. Do people have access to go to college? And if they don't, like, what are the barriers, right? Yeah. So we started like going in and learning, are kids ready? How are they ready, or how are they not ready? And then kind of coming back to TU and saying like, this is where our public school students in Tulsa are. Yeah. If TU wants to be an institution that is servicing them, they need to know that, right? Yeah. And so, I did that for a while, and then obviously what everyone always says at some point in their career, then COVID hit.
Yeah. We all have that in our story now.
Right. It's like, what happened to you when COVID happened? And are you traumatized or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so COVID happened. And so I started recruiting because I couldn't go into schools. I couldn't do community outreach. Yeah. We at least didn't know how. Right. And so I started recruiting transfer students, which also I think becomes important in Campus Tulsa. Right. Yeah. So I started working primarily with Tulsa community college students who are like looking to go to TU. I didn't last very long doing that. As I said earlier, admissions isn't my love. So TPS had called me, in specific, I had worked at a high school, East Central High School in East Tulsa. And they called me and like, we really like the community outreach stuff that you're doing. Do you want to come do that like all the time here? We have this position. It's like college and career. I had a little community partnership sprinkled in there, but it's like, let's get these kids some options. Let's at least educate students on what their options are and help them get access to these pathways, right? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Because this recruiting stuff is hard. And I loved East Central. I will say, like, I loved East Central. Like, it felt like a really good place for me. Yeah. I would go there one day a week. And I just enjoyed it. Yeah. I'm like, let's do it.
I love hearing about like your East Central experience because like you talk about it in a way that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about in this city. Like I don't know. You had the personal experience, so it's almost like I just immediately listened to yours more than I would anybody else's noise because they're just making inferences.
It's so funny, and like for context too, East Central High School is in East Tulsa. And people would probably say like that's a bad part of town. Like you shouldn't go there, or at least shouldn't go there at night without people, this, that, and whatever. And I think that what was so powerful about my experience at East Tulsa, and honestly my dream is to really, I don't even know the word, embrace at Campus Tulsa when we talk about the work we do within our community, is that community in Tulsa is so vibrant and so powerful. And so oftentimes these communities are counted out or overlooked because poverty exists within that community, right? And so East Tulsa changed my life. Like I could talk for days about East Central High School. The experience I had in terms of I tell people this all the time. Like I still get invited to quinceañeras. I still go over for dinner on Saturday nights sometimes. Like I'm doing all these things where this community still takes care of me and I'm not even there anymore. And I think that is what that community is.
Once you were a part of it, you were a part of it.
Yeah. And so anyways, to kind of fast forward through East Central, although I could spend years talking about it, I did college and career, right? How do we do that? And then there are things that would like start to sneak in and it would be like, we want to do an internship program with East Central students. So then internships start to become a part of my life at that point. We would do job shadowing, still kind of internship adjacent, right? Started doing all these things. And then me and my colleague, her name's Tiffany Bennett. She's actually there at East Central now doing the same position I was doing. She was a counselor at the time and now she's doing the college and career. We were like, we want to throw something where we highlight what people in this community do or people from this community are doing and showcase students like these. You have access to everything that these people are. You can be everything that they are. And you don't have to think that just because you're in East Tulsa and everybody on your street doesn't do anything that you want to do, that you can't do that, right? Or just like even knowing what people do, right?
Exposure. It's we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, just the importance of exposure, especially in education. I think that it honestly does befall upon the community and any organization that exists within that community to highlight exposure because it's kind of the first thing that can get lost in, a community being able to tell its story. It's just an important part of it.
Yeah. And I think that we think about this all the time at Campus Tulsa too. Like when we see a job posting, we might encounter college students who are getting a degree that applies to this, but because of the way that the language is or how it's described, they don't even understand that this is what you're doing. And so, I think that applies to a lot of spaces when you're talking about like college access or career access. You have to think in terms of making sure that this is readable and digestible wherever the student is, because that could be the best applicant, right? But the applicant doesn't know that they're the best applicant because they don't understand.
Yeah.
So this is actually how I met Campus Tulsa, this career fair. So I told her, like, I think we should do this. And she's like, I think we should do it too. And it's so funny. I remember my principal, she was like, yeah, sure, whatever, do it. And I don't think she realized that Tiffany and I were not going to go home unless this thing was like huge and like that this thing was crazy and amazing and whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember like the week before, she was like, hey, Tulsa Public Schools called me. They're wanting to cover this on the news. Can you give me some numbers? And we're like, yeah, we're going to have 100 companies here and 55 speakers. And she was like, what?
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so we were really intentional. We got business owners that look like our students. We focused on Latinx and Black-owned businesses. We also like just started digging. Like we wanted to find out who was from East Tulsa, who was owning a business or working in this corporate space that could offer some like, this is how I did it. And then who are the pathways there? So we had lots of universities and institutions there to talk about this is how you can be here, right? And honestly, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Campus Tulsa came with the chamber. And I had known Brandon Oldham, who everyone in Tulsa's future mayor, although I don't think he wants that position. So I kind of had talked to Brandon about Campus Tulsa before, and I'd known a little bit about it. And that event went really, really well. And I continued to be in conversation with them. And then now look at me. Here we are.
Managing it, program directing it. That's amazing.
I know. It's kind of wild when you think about it. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of my experience in Tulsa. And honestly, I think it will probably give a lot of context as to why the work that Campus Tulsa does is really important to me
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Brooke. That was great. There's so many things I want to touch on, and I think we will touch on as we continue talking. So, and you also hinted a lot at this next question and kind of that story. So maybe just in your own words again, what is your relationship with Tulsa? How have you seen the city change? I mean, we just talked about we're almost at 10 years with you. I'm sure you've seen some things.
Yeah. Yeah. When I moved to Tulsa, actually, I remember my parents and we had a break between, it's funny, I didn't want to come to Tulsa. Like my dad made me tour the University of Tulsa. I came on a tuition exchange program. The tuition was going to be free. Once I knew that, I was like pretty down.
Yeah.
I will say that, but I didn't know that when I came and visited.
Yeah.
So I was like, my dad's making me do this. I want to go to a Big 12 school, like love the Big 12, whatever. Although it's no longer as it is, but we won't get into that. And so I was like, okay, fine. My dad's like, well, if we're going to go, he's a Kansas fan. So he was like, if you're going to make me visit these other Big 12 schools and you're going to go to a school I pick. So go to TU, love it. I loved it. But then we went on like a drive in between some stuff. And I was like, there's nothing downtown. But you have to understand, in my perspective, that's me looking back. At the time, I was like, okay, this is cool. Because I lived in a town that didn't even have a downtown.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You
were only comparing.
Like I was comparing like not even, it's apples and oranges, right?
Yeah.
So I remember being like, I mean, this is cool, I guess. And I had never traveled really. So as I started to travel the world, I was like, oh, maybe Tulsa doesn't have it like the downtown. And then now look at downtown, like even the space that we're sitting in right now, right? When I got here was not really a developed space in the same way that it was then.
Not at all.
Yeah. And so that in and of itself, like downtown has tremendously grown and developed. But I think my relationship with Tulsa, man, honestly, Tulsa and I have a great relationship. And I...
You're going steady for sure.
Yeah, 10 years is a long time. They should propose at this point. But no, I just would say Tulsa has allowed me to really elevate in a lot of ways, be it in community, which I think is where my heart really lies. And then even just like professionally, the way that the professional network in Tulsa has allowed me to get exposure to all of the things and meet all of the people and be able to grow and learn what I like and what I don't like, and has given me the freedom to do so. And I think that really has been life-changing for me. I have two brothers, and I think that they're both happy where they live. I'm not saying anything about where they live or don't live, right?
Yeah.
But I do think I've had a special experience in terms of like the way that the community here has really embraced me and allowed me to work in different spaces and see what is and isn't, and has celebrated me when I've been successful, and has also like been able to pat me on the back and be like, it's going to be okay when I've been unsuccessful, right?
That's amazing. I shared like such similar sentiments to just being able to learn and grow and also try and fail. I think that's so important when it comes to community, and also just in personal development. I it's just, life is so much pressure and stress already that if anyone gives you that space, it's something, and you recognize it, like I wouldn't take it for granted, and I don't. So it's so important. I'm glad you highlighted that piece.
Yeah, it's definitely important to find, especially I feel like in this early career space, this like right out of school, or I'm still figuring out who I am. Yeah, it's very important.
100%. So I think in the wrapping up our Tulsa conversation, I want to talk a little bit about, not wrapping it up, we're going to continue talking about Tulsa, but I think this specific about growth and about Tulsa, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for growth in Tulsa currently? This is kind of an oddball question. And, I'm not looking for, I'm looking for whatever you think and whatever your experience lends to.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time thinking about this question, actually, and thinking about where is the potential lie right now. And I think it's twofold. Obviously, Evan, you and I work in this like economic development, workforce development space. So we think about like the people who are considering moving their business to Tulsa, right? The people who are looking to grow their workforces. And I do think that there's a lot of potential there, both organically and with the work that people are doing.
Yeah.
I would like to say that where I see a lot of potential right now is honestly within like creating spaces to uplift communities. I think whenever I moved to Tulsa, there were like outliers of people who were saying, learn about Black Wall Street, right? Learn about North Tulsa, learn about East Tulsa, West Tulsa, like learn about these spaces of communities who generally are overlooked because of poverty, probably, you know, more or less, and race, right? Both of those things are really, really big there. But I see people in a new way. And even in corporate conversations, right? When we're going in, Courtney McLean is our partnerships manager. He does a phenomenal job really facilitating conversations, creating partnerships for us. And even when he goes into places, people in Tulsa are really aware that there needs to be a switch in community investment.
Yes.
And I think that investment it's a big investment. It is how do we invest in creating more equitable communities and giving people access to everything they need to reach their potential, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we're running and making the most equitable communities in America in Tulsa right now. I don't want to like sound blindly optimistic or unaware of the realities of Tulsa, right?
Yeah.
Because we still have our problems. But I do think that I see this shift where people are thinking about communities other than their own. And I think that that's a big first step. And I do think that we have the potential, both as people who work in the nonprofit space, as people who have connection to government leaders and things like that, to start to really put the pressure on in how are we going to transform these communities. And I think that I think that the time is now, right? I think that we have enough people who are getting invested in the community, enough people who are seeing this as an absolute need in Tulsa to really think about how are we serving these populations of people who've been not even invited to the table ever, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big space that could potentially really take off and grow right now.
Yeah, I think that's the scale of Tulsa. I think that's the space where the existing communities here can essentially flourish while embracing the people that we're bringing here. And so it's almost like a mutually beneficial relationship between the two. And I know that kind of separates them of like the people that have been here and the people that are coming here, which when you're in a city and you're here, you're here. Like you kind of do become a little bit homogenous in that experience in the sense that you're in a geography, but the experience breaks down in layers, obviously based on identity groups, based on socioeconomic status, based on race, like these things that I think the point I wanted to touch on with what you said is that like I think people are finally bringing their identities to the table or getting to bring their identities to the table and not having to fit this mold in order to do so. Yeah.
And I will say too, when you invest in the communities that exist here, right? When you give this like access to the resources it's going to take for them to reach their potential and even to like know what their potential is or what they want it to be, right? It's really about what they want, what people want for themselves. When you start to do that investment and those people start to become leaders within their own communities, leaders within the workforce in Tulsa, leaders within like our civic engagement, and even like, let me just go ahead and throw in like public office, right? Then that brings people to Tulsa, right? When you invest in your own community and you ensure that they have the access to the things that they just need, right? And then furthermore, that they have the access to the things to live the life that they want to live. Like that's the next step. I think that is so valuable when you think about, we want to create a Tulsa that people want to come to, right? And the first step in doing that is creating a Tulsa where the people here are taken care of, right? No one
and
wants
where the people want to
move.
stay.
Yeah, no one wants to move somewhere where it's like, oh, you're gonna treat me like loyalty and whatever because here I am moving to your city. But what about all these people who exist here already, right? Yeah. And so I think that that's kind of where we stand, is like we're getting to a point where I think we're ready to really invest in what's here. And I think that that's just going to, if done and done well, it'll just pair with and allow like the influx of growth and everything to go so hand in hand together. But you can't have one without the other. And I think that's really important to like acknowledge is you have to invest in what's here before you just go ahead and top heavy, bring everybody here on like whatever, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think that was a great segue into talking a little bit more about Campus Tulsa, understanding the mission of the organization, and who best to tell us than Brooke. So do you mind telling us about Campus Tulsa?
Yeah. So I've been practicing my pitch, right? Because I have all these conversations all the time, and I'm like, how do I get this down? So I'll give you guys a shot. But Campus Tulsa is a part of the economic and workforce development like sector, I would say, of George Kaiser Family Foundation, right? And so we work within Tulsa, and our entire mission is to really invest in diverse talent and give students access to these internship opportunities, teach them about what these internship opportunities really are, right? Make sure they feel comfortable being applicants, so on and so forth. And then making sure they have a really, really great experience while they're here. And I'll kind of come back to that. But essentially, we want students to have access to the internships. We want them to know that the internships are for them, right? And then we work with corporations. Like we're looking for corporations who are equitably minded, right? They want diverse talent. They want to think about how their policies and procedures impact their employees, right? We're looking for employers who want to invest in early career. There's a huge need for early career people in Tulsa. And I think that we just are ensuring the employers are creating those early career positions. They're looking at how can I expand my internship program? How can I build one if I don't have one? We go into companies and say, you don't have an internship program. You want an internship program. Here's how we do it.
Yeah.
We can assist with onboarding. We do some professional development to kind of make up for capacity issues with companies and organizations. And then if you're not ready for an internship and you want to be in this space of kind of making this investment in young talent, but you don't have the funds or the capacity, we will help set up some like job shadow opportunities there if that's something that you're interested in. I know we've talked about that with Tulsa Community College a little bit too. But we're kind of twofold. We're like investing in the student side, and we're really elevating these positions and these opportunities that our corporations have. And they're having a hard time sometimes, I think, getting those positions to diverse talent pools, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally, there's like a specific demographic of people who slides into internships, and they haven't been able to break out of that. And so they're coming to us saying, you know, we want those students there, but we want other students here too. And so we kind of do this like twofold thing. And then during the actual summer, we provide a pretty healthy schedule. We do 2 events a week, really just getting students into different parts of Tulsa, letting them experience the Tulsa community, doing some professional development. Like we did salary negotiation workshops. We've done we do headshots for all of the interns in Tulsa. Opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies. We get them to drillers games.
Yeah.
We did glass blowing. We do walking tours of Greenwood. We do Greenwood Rising. We do Global District. We do all these things so that they can see all that Tulsa is while they're here, so that they understand. One, they understand from the jump once they get their internship, there's a place for me here professionally.
Yeah.
And then like the idea is that company has worked with us to create a really good, which a lot of companies do this on their own. I don't want to say we're the ones who make it happen.
Yeah.
But they've worked with this company. The company made it a really value-adding internship. Then they go home at night and then they come to Campus Tulsa events and they see what is in Tulsa and what they can, honestly, we're doing things they can partake in by themselves. It's just we're bringing them to it, right?
Yeah.
And so that we get this like dual experience where it's like, I can live here and like it, and I can work here and like it. And what better thing to do is to be in a space where you can be happy in the office and out of the office, right? And so that's really what we're trying to do. There's a lot of programming that goes into that, and I honestly couldn't have done it justice in that short little blimp, but
that was great.
Yeah.
It was like one of the shortest campus pitches I've heard, but
I was
like,
trying.
It was great. And there's so many things I want to touch on because honestly, it feels like something that like I was so close to being in the window of Campus Tulsa impacting me. And I'm like, dang it, I missed it. Like, I wish I could have had that experience, but I made my own Tulsa experience and I got back here regardless. So
you're here and we're happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point I want to make a little bit is that I think what you're saying is so spot on with just like, untapped talent or just underrepresented talent not having access to internships. not knowing, and there's two kind of problems when you say that. I think that, and campus is addressing both of them. The two problems being that like Tulsa-based corporations weren't creating internship programs. For some reason, there wasn't this like influx or abundance of opportunities, and or if there were, they weren't being advertised in the way that they are now. If that was the case, and then also, I think one of the reasons that, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but one of the reasons that Campus Tulsa was founded in the first place was because Tulsa has a brain drain. There is a mass exodus, essentially, I think metaphorically, but of talent, that talent with 4-year degrees after college, people that have degrees in Tulsa or are considering Tulsa don't go to Tulsa. They go to Dallas. They go to these hubs that have those opportunities or have those pipelines, probably have internship pipelines too that create that. And I just think it's so important that this work is specifically addressing that, because the brain drain is important to address. And this feels like a great kind of wraparound address of that, because it's not only providing access, it's not only providing resources, it's providing a network. It's providing so many things that, I think as a college student, I didn't know I needed. And that's the best type of programming that you can provide is what you don't know you need to succeed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree in terms of like, you don't know what you know until you know it, right? And it's so funny, like the term brain drain. It's like, it's not a term I like, and I don't know why.
It's a little bit, it has some connotations,
right? And I think it's because everything you're saying was like really clicking for me, and what I think too is really important, and I think some people that, Campus Tulsa really needs to shout out in the work that we do. This is kind of what I was talking about when I think we have this like ability to pivot in our communities. Is there are very talented individuals in Tulsa. They're just underinvested in or given a lack of access to, right?
Yeah.
So this is why the term brain drain, right? It's like, it's this term we use, and I totally understand why we use it. So no like harm, no foul, but there's a lot of brain here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
The brain didn't just drain out.
Exactly. So it's like a coin term. It's what everyone uses to have this conversation about like the exodus of students who go to college in Tulsa, right? But we have these great partners in Tulsa, which I think we really need to start elevating. We have the Higher Education Consortium. They do amazing work. They've created, I mean, I'm probably wrong, but I'm almost certain that it's like 406 pathways in Tulsa. You can get 406 degrees in the city of Tulsa right now, and they're growing. They're reevaluating, creating more degree programs every single quarter or year. I'm not really sure. Dr. Latta is doing an amazing job over there with her team.
Yeah.
And so like, there are all these opportunities for us to, because like, honestly, like a really unvarnished challenge for Tulsa and for Campus Tulsa in general is there is so much talent here that doesn't have access to education.
Yeah.
And so those pathways are important, right? You can take advantage of the Tulsa Achieves program at Tulsa Community College and go to school for your first 2 years for free, and then continue on and get one of these degree pathways in your own city.
Yeah.
We see a lot of families and in these underserved communities, their students aren't necessarily looking to go to OU. They're not looking to go to OSU outside of Tulsa, but they would love to go to an OU Tulsa. They would love to go to an OSU Tulsa because they want to stay close to their family. Like that communal sense is really strong. And so I think that when we talk about the brain drain, I'm going to use it too, right? Like when we talk about this, we have to think about one, showing students who are leaving. If you only know one part of Tulsa, then you're not going to want to come back here, right? Like that totally makes sense. I mean, there's only one part of my town, but I didn't,
yeah, you only have one picture.
You have one picture. You're not going to want to come back. But that being said, is like, we need to make sure that, so we do high school immersion too. This is something new we've added this year. So we bring high school students and show them other parts of Tulsa. We like get them in front of community leaders who look like them, who do things here, and say, look, you can live here, you can do things here, and here's your pathways, right? So we're trying to really bolster that experience. But I think that all the points that you've made are so, so important. One, we need to show the talent that is taking that leap of faith and leaving Tulsa, who's getting opportunities elsewhere, is saying like, Tulsa could never. Tulsa can, like, give us a shot. And so we address that. And then, we're really thinking about like Tulsa Community College, the Higher Ed Consortium, these other entities here in town who could really help us get some pipelines out of Tulsa Public Schools, Union Public Schools, Broken Arrow Public Schools, Jinx Public Schools into these transfer pathways, and right into the workforce here. And I think like Holberton deserves a shout out too.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have these other upskilling programs that do phenomenal jobs. And it's like, okay, we are all interested in this community investment.
We're all in this together. The High School Musical is coming out.
I want to dance. I want to dance. I love High School Musical. Just watched 17 again with Zac Efron. And I was like, man, I forgot how much I love Zac Efron and the High School Musical people.
How has this program been received by students so far? Can you speak a little bit to the student experience?
Yeah, I think what we see a lot of, and it's funny, our program officer, Manib, he'll tell you this, we'll bring kids here from OU or, NSU, and they will get on the bus and ask their faculty, like, how far, like, man, when are we going to get there, And we're like, oh, it's like an hour and a half away. And they're like, what? Tulsa's only an hour and a half away? I thought it was like, I've lived in Tahlequah my whole life. I thought it was like, well, Tahlequah's probably not a good example because we have a lot of exchange there. But I've lived in Oklahoma City my whole life, and I thought it was like 3 or 4 hours away. It's like, no, we're pretty close to you, right?
It's like not that far.
Yeah, it's super close. And so one, I think just like proximity, like in the state, that is like something we overcome a lot. But they get here and they have a great time.
Yeah.
Like they enjoy their experience. We have interns calling us saying, got any jobs? Like I'm about to graduate, I've had 2 in the last week like say something to me in terms of like, I want to be in Tulsa when I'm done. So I think it's being well received. I think as any program's barrier is when they're newer, right, is we just really need to invest in getting more people in the door.
Yeah.
And I think that we're investing the time in the work there. So I think it's going to happen, especially as more students come and get to enjoy their experience. I think as Tulsa normally is, right, people get here and they're like, I like it here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the magic of Tulsa. It gets you stuck.
It gets you stuck. You experience things. I think that we are kind of in a cool space where we have a curation, like a part of how you experience Tulsa, but as curated as it might feel, you also experience some very authentic parts of the city. And I think that combination really kind of resonates for people when they come. If it's their first time or if they come back and it's their like solidifying experience.
I totally agree. I've heard from someone say, I met somebody who matched my identity and I didn't think I would find that person in Tulsa. They came on an immersion experience and the person took a job in Tulsa only because they had come here and met someone who had confirmed to them like a community of people who matches our identity is here. That's and awesome. I'm happy within that community here. And that's all it took.
Yeah.
They told me the rest of the immersion experience was great. They didn't need it. And so I think that we think about like there's so much power in connecting people with each other. Yeah. And I think that that's where we really have our strength.
100%. And I think to round out our conversation, I would love to know, and I'd love for you to tell anyone that might be listening that, what can companies looking to provide internships do to get involved? And, also kind of highlighting what is the importance of your corporate partnerships?
Yeah. So partnerships are so important because that's how we make it happen, right? So if you're a corporation, you have an internship program here in Tulsa, small business, medium-sized business, large business, whatever it is, and you're interested in internships, even if you don't know if you're ready, like just go to our website, it's campustulsa.com. You'll see Courtney and my own information both up there. You're more than welcome to reach out to myself or Courtney or both of us and just say, hey, I want to start the conversation. Then we can do an assessment and like just meet and hear where you are. We do like expectations. Like, let's put it on paper. It's not a formal like legal document by any means at this moment, but it's like, what would Campus Tulsa need to do for you? And what are our expectations as an employer of them? And I think that that's really just getting a meeting on the calendar is really special. And can I talk about like one partnership briefly that's not corporate, but I know that you and I have talked about a lot and I didn't want to leave it out. But we are doing a new partnership with New U. A lot of people in Tulsa are coming to learn about New U. And I would say that if you're a Tulsan, especially if you're a college student and you're in Tulsa right now, New U is launching a college track. And so essentially what New U is doing, and I'll never be able to give it as much justice as Aaron Wiggum does because he's so eloquent and he has all these beautiful one-liners.
He's an orator, as what I say. Yeah.
He just makes you feel so inspired all of the time. So Aaron runs this program called New U that has recently partnered with Campus Tulsa. And what they do is they help people idealize what's next. Like, what do I want and how do I get there? And what is this new version of me that I'm trying to obtain? And they do a beautiful job. And so they're opening a college track that has partnered with Campus Tulsa. And I think it's a really great way if you're a TCC student, if you're a TU student, whatever it is. That I really love to encourage my TCC students to think about it too, right? Get in there, do that program, think about idealizing where do you want to be? Let campus be a part of that story, right? Let us help you plug you into an internship. Let us connect you with the type of employers that you want to be in rooms with. Do this program, talk to us, and let's think about what it means for you to be the version of yourself that you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a partnership I'm really excited about. And I think our corporations are going to play a part in that partnership too, right? They're going to be the ones fielding applicants that have gone through this program and have this confidence in who they are and who they want to be. And so I'm super excited about all of our corporate partners, but I'm especially excited about the partnership with New U. I think Aaron's team is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think that paired with us, like we make a really good duo. And I think that we're about to see some big accomplishments between the two of us.
Yeah, I love that shout out, and it's so deserved because we had Raquel Wilson on the episodes a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking a lot about how you felt like the first place where new Tulsans and Tulsans were in conversation with each other. And I bet that that's going to be the same. It sounds like with the college track, that's probably what it's going to be like as well. There are going to be some folks that are here, going to TCC, and maybe they're going to TCC from another city, or like just experiencing Tulsa in those ways at such an important time in your life, and just getting those perspectives is going to be so amazing. So thank you for shouting that out. There's so many things I want to talk about. I'm really passionate about like everything we've talked about when it comes to education, when it comes to providing access, when it comes to providing opportunities. I think that is the sweet spot for to answer my own question. I feel like that's the biggest opportunity for growth in Tulsa.
Can I use an Aaron Wiggum one-liner? So
do.
I think that when you think about Campus Tulsa, when you think about New U, when you think about in Tulsa, or any of the people doing work in Tulsa to make Tulsa a better place, something Aaron Wiggum said at our first partnership event together with students was, think about your life, think about Tulsa, think about where you live. All these students are from Tulsa, obviously. What do you want Tulsa to be in 30 years? When you close your eyes and you imagine what Tulsa is in 30 years, he said, what do you want it to be? And how do you play a part in that? And I think that is what we all lay our heads down at night thinking about is what do we want Tulsa to be for the people around us and for ourselves? And I think that's what's so powerful about New U and about the work that all of us in this network are doing, is because we're thinking about that.
Yeah.
And so that would be my last comment, and I'll let you close it out. That's what I'd like to end on. But what do we want Tulsa to be in 30 years?
I love it. No, it's such a good point to make, because I even love the phrase or just the words of like idealizing your future. I think that's something that sometimes we don't give ourselves the space to do. So I'm so glad. And you does that. And I think that campus does that as well. And by providing access, opportunity, visibility, exposure, all of those things that we've been touching on. So love it, love it, love it. Brooke, is there anything else you want to plug about campus, the work that you're doing, if anybody wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would just say one more time, our website is campustulsa.com. All of our contact information of our team is on there. And then you can always find us on social media. Campus Tulsa is our handle. Find us on LinkedIn as well. But connect with us. Even if you don't know how it might work right now, maybe we all won't know how it might work right now. It's worth being in conversation and knowing what everybody is doing and being able to work together to create the Tulsa we want to see. So I just encourage people to reach out.
I love it. Thank you so much, Brooke, for being on this episode of Grow With Us.
Yeah, thank you.
For listeners of Grow With Us looking for new opportunities, please join our talent network to stay in touch with our featured jobs and opportunities at InTulsa. Visit talent.intulsa.com. That's talent.intulsa.com. By joining our talent network, you will get access to our newsletter where you can stay up to date with our latest career advice, featured opportunities with InTulsa partner companies, and our placement success stories. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. Huge thank you to our editors at Rant9 Production and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.